Oh, yeah. Good to go.
Okay. All right, I'll open the meeting. I'm assuming everybody that plans on being here is here. We have a quorum so we can do our business. All right, the first thing is the designer RFQ update, which Dave, you asked for that. So are you doing it? Or
I'll do that.
you'll do that, Brett?
Yeah.
Okay.
So on February 8th, we received 2 responses to our designer RFQ request for proposals. CDM Smith and AECom. That isn't a lot of proposals, as opposed to OPM where we had 9 responses. We only had 2 for this one. And we are planning on March the 3rd to interview both firms with the same review team that did the OPM review, which is town administrator, assistant town administrator, myself, our water and wastewater superintendent, and 2 representatives from RAC. So that'll be the review team on Thursday. That's the quick update. I'll have a lot more to report than that, but happy to answer any questions the committee might have.
Anybody have any questions for Jeff on this one? It's not. Okay. Did you figure out on the OPM about getting that signed? Because that's gonna be ready for Thursday also, right? Are they supposed to participate in the process?
They are. Ray Pierce will be part of that process as well. And they'll be participating whether they have a signed contract or not. But
Oh,
we're
okay.
trying to get it signed before.
All right, very good. All right, so I think this is the part, notice of project change update that David had asked about.
Do you want me to give the update, Dave? So the notice of project change was submitted to MIPA back on February 15th. It was submitted as a single EIR, it's called, because you had submitted your 2-stage draft and final EIRs back in 2011. What this does is lengthens the comment period for the notice of project change to allow the public to comment on the report that was submitted. So what the next steps are is comments can be submitted through March 25th to MIPA, and or I think I am listed as a contact person to myself as well. There will be a public virtual site visit, they call it. So a public virtual Zoom meeting. Actually, it's via Microsoft Teams on Thursday, March 10th at 6 p.m. So we invite all of you to attend. I will distribute the notification once it's available from MIPA through Kyle to the committee. So we'd invite you all to attend to support the project. And that, just for your information, will also be translated because there was an environmental justice Portuguese speaking community. So that will be translated this week as well. And then the certificate would be issued from MIPA on April 1st. So it is a pretty condensed period, but that still allows for that full comment period.
So did I get that right? They're gonna issue the certificate a week after this public meeting?
Yeah, it would be good if you as the chair or your committee members or everyone can tune into that meeting on March 10th at 6 and express your support for MIPA to approve the notice of project change as submitted so that the town can continue to move forward as expeditiously as possible. There is a concern that since the CWMP approval was over 10 years old now, that they may want more environmental evaluations done and what have you, which shouldn't slow down any designs per se, but could add additional study report preparation that would need to be submitted to them. We keep telling them it's the same plan that you approved back in 2011, but it'd be good if the committee expressed that.
And if they did have those concerns, they would be listed in the certificate that would be
Right.
issued on that April date. So we would know at that date.
Okay, so
They will issue a certificate on the 25th. It's whether it's just approval or whether they want more work to be submitted.
would a letter to this process also be helpful from the committee?
Yes,
Why don't we-
submitting
we'll
that
do that.
in the comment period would be very helpful.
Does anybody in the committee have a problem with sending a letter? Obviously in support of the program as part of this notice of project change? Nobody, yes, no?
Your signature?
Yep.
Need a
Well,
motion?
for the committee, if you'd like to.
Would you like us to make that motion?
Sure.
So
I'm the
moved.
chair, so I'll let somebody else do it.
So
Do I have a second? Okay, I have to do a roll call because of Zoom. So myself, Spiro,
Aye.
Tom. Aye. Oh, you did say aye? Okay, I missed it. Joanne. What did I say, John? I'm sorry. I'm looking at the Tom.
Tom Maldine, when you said Tom.
I'm losing it very quickly now. Sorry. John.
You've been called worse.
Tom Roach. Hey, it's only taking me this long to just totally lose my mind, so that's not bad.
And Lee, I think.
And Lee, aye, okay, thank you. All right, so that takes care of that. And again, individually, if anybody wants to respond or comment at that meeting, it's obviously your right to do so.
Yes, such as the Friends of Bass River, that would be great if you would send a comment letter endorsing as well.
Are they in favor of this?
I don't know. Maybe they'll
We'll
send
find out
a
in a
letter.
letter.
I said send a letter, I didn't say.
Need more information.
Okay. Anything else under that?
This, just, so you know, this was the thickness of the document that went in, so there is a lot of information in here.
You're the one guy that
want
read it? I can't imagine. Well, I can. After doing 9 OPM reviews, I can't imagine all that meeting. Okay. I don't see Bill. Do I see Bill
Yeah, I
up
don't
there?
see him either.
I'll postpone that. Hopefully he tunes in. All right, Friends of Bass River update. You're on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think I have some good news for the committee. Our Upper Bass River Headwaters Restoration Project is continuing to move along. We have the good fortune of receiving priority project designation by Mass DER. And that it does a lot of very good things for us. It provides some very specific technical assistance and some funding opportunities for us, which are coming down the road very soon. So it's we're in a very good place right now.
That's as far as you want to go, huh?
Yes, indeed it is.
Okay.
Can I,
Thank you.
can I use this item on the agenda to make a request and then maybe add an agenda item to the next meeting?
Sure.
So we now have a regular source of information from one of the watershed stakeholders. And it seems to be a very useful process. They're doing the work, which is even better. But we have 3 watersheds and we don't have a similar flow of information for the other 2 watersheds. So wondering if we can have a discussion about helping create those, or at least identify those other stakeholders and maybe get them to be more participatory in this process. They may not be able to the degree that the Bass River watershed is, but I'm sure we can at least have a smaller constituency of folks more fully engaged in what we're doing in Lewis Bay and Parkers River.
I agree. I just don't know who that, how to identify who that might be.
I think that's the discussion. How do we flush them out, so to
Right.
speak?
Because I'm sure.
No
Oh,
intended.
Rick, go ahead.
I think there is a very small Friends of Lewis Bay organization.
They've contacted us a couple of times.
There you
We
go.
can give you their
Let's get them in here and then
Yeah.
Nothing for Parkers River though.
even if you have to handpick folks in Parkers River, I mean, it's pretty self-evident who some of those folks would be.
It's a little more complicated than you might imagine. The water testing teams are very committed. It's weekly testing. And there's a fairly substantial investment in equipment. And then we have a relationship with the Parmesan Center for Coastal Studies to do the analysis.
So I'm not looking at it from the technical perspective. That would be great if we could ever get to that point. It'd be more in terms of public communication, PR. At least you can tap a couple of folks in each watershed and say these guys know a little bit more than the rest of the group, or at least the rest of the folks in that watershed, and they could point to them or at least be conduits of information back into the community. It's going to be useful as we get more into this process and people figure out exactly what we've been talking about.
Actually, as you forward with reciting the treatment plan and all of, and the discharge. I mean, I would think.
I'm feeling, various smaller constituencies, most likely neighborhood groups are gonna start shooting at us. It would be nice if there was somebody standing between
Well,
this,
we're happy to stand between you and them on our side of the road. but-
just as long as you don't start shooting at us. So,
No.
it's not on the agenda, so I didn't want to get too deep into it. And
No,
say
it's
we should,
fine. I totally agree with you.
if
I
you can
just
put it
didn't
on for
know
next
that-
time, we can have a more fuller discussion and people can think about it on.
Yeah.
Between now and then.
I agree. So it's fine with me. Okay. Nothing else on Friends?
Not today. We'll see you
Okay.
next month.
All right, expect a lot more from you next month. Jeff, are you able to speak on the town meeting articles? Or-
I think I could talk about them. I'm not sure why it's on the agenda, your agenda.
I think it's probably just for support from
FYI,
us.
I
and,
think
and
was
FYI.
let you guys know, or let the committee know what the wastewater related articles that are. I don't know, has the warrant article,
I
has the
don't
warrant,
think there's any wastewater related articles.
was the,
Yeah, the diff.
Financial.
the
Um,
stabilization
and the-
fund?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm the best one to talk about.
Evidently not.
Um, There was going to be a wastewater enterprise fund article that's been pulled, is my understanding. So that's the one that I could talk a little bit about because DPW would be administering that fund. But there's no intent this year to spend out of that fund. As the committee recalls, I'm sure, in the fall, the wastewater enterprise fund was approved and about $1.6 million was put in the enterprise fund from available funds, but at this point, we don't have a need to spend out of that. And so that article, which was going to be article number 6, that was being reviewed by the Board of Selectmen, has been pulled. So that, doesn't have the need. There's available funds in some of the ARPA funds and federal funds, as well as previously approved funds that are available for our wastewater spending purposes. There's been several articles that were approved, including the fall town meeting for design and OPM services that's available, as well as a couple of years ago, $5.2 million was approved for some collection system design. So there's the feeling is there's sufficient funds for keeping us moving forward on wastewater, at least at this point. But as far as the diff, I know that's a relatively new discussion, and that's something that fully Bill Scott needs to talk about.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand the concept of the diff and capturing the new growth associated with the areas within the diff. But as far as the details, he's done one of these before in a previous community that he's worked in, and he'd be the one to talk to that. Again, the committee is very aware of the menu of revenue options that we've had, and this is a newer one that hadn't been discussed much previously, so I don't feel prepared.
But it
talk
kind of
about
goes, it kind of goes back to your old topic of using the new growth to, fund future phases.
Exactly.
It just formalizes the process through a diff.
right.
Um,
And what the original diff idea by Lou Nicanello and others was limited in scope, where I do know that this district actually encompasses everything that we're sewering. So.
And some other properties too that might not be in phase 1, but we think is going to be prime for development
Mhm.
because we want to capture that additional growth.
Okay.
And there's also is the way I'm not the best person to speak about it either, but there's the wastewater stabilization fund that's being established, which we were presented at the last CEDC meeting,
Mhm.
which is going to amend the tourism revenue preservation fund formula to exclude the short-term rental tax revenues and use those to establish a wastewater stabilization fund. And that would take place starting in effect with the FY23 revenues. So tourism fund is lagged. It's based off of fiscal year 2 years prior. So again, I'm not the best person to
No.
speak on this, but there's also that too.
Right.
So
Okay. I think what we're talking about here are things that just formalize what we've talked about in the past, for those of you who've been around for a while. Just, back when Rich Bienvenu was working on some of the funding formulas, the diff and the short-term rentals were a big part of how we're gonna pay for this. Okay. So we'll get a better explanation of that at the next meeting. I guess we're down to new business. What?
Thank you, man.
Just don't say two pipes. I don't want to hear it.
Well, no, I was just gonna ask what new business was related to, Mr. Chairman.
If somebody has, if a member has business that they'd like to discuss that wasn't in the agenda, they could bring it up and we can decide whether it's in the scope or we got to put it off till another meeting.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
The name of your committee, could you repeat it for me, please?
Water Resources Advisory Committee.
So we can talk about things that are not related to sewer water, right?
Yeah, well, as far as I know, yes.
Or are they-
But,
Yeah.
well, because our focus has been on sewage, we haven't got into the, I believe that we could chime in on stormwater and domestic water.
Well, I think every resident today got a letter in the mail from the water company pertaining to PFAS, which is now at 3 wells. So I was just wondering if this committee was gonna take a big action on some water advisory that's not related to sewer.
Well, since it hasn't been brought to our attention officially, not yet, but, one of the conversations I had before we walked in this room this afternoon was my itch with everybody think the innovative alternative systems are going to save our ass. And excuse my French, but if we can capture the waste, we can treat different issues as we identify them. So I believe if necessary, and Jeff's more technical than I am, obviously, but maybe there's a possibility we treat PFAS at the wastewater level instead of just discharging it back on the ground. We know it's there. So that's just one example, but pharmaceuticals, I don't know if we can treat for them, but we know they're in the water and they're all detrimental to what we're drinking. So that's part of the reason why I've been a proponent for the big pipe, as much as I wish there were better solutions, but I agree with you that, the PFAS and the other issues that we have, I'd rather find, if we can capture it all, we can treat it. That's my personal sense about that.
And I guess maybe one of the prime directives too is conserving water.
Obviously, well, the other thing about when you go on sewers and everything costs more money, you're going to learn how to conserve water really quick. Because you're going to pay coming in and you're going to pay going out. And whether we can mandate certain things as a town that people do as they tie into the sewer system, I don't know. But I think from their personal economic perspective, they're going to want to improve their faucets, improve their toilets, and they're going to want to shut the water off when they're not using it instead of letting it run and things like that. So,
Well, as we phase in, it's gonna be a long time to get that message out through everybody. So
Right.
just to know that the committee would have any interest in advising the constituents about conserving and really, looking at how precious our water really is.
yeah, well, yes, but because sewers have been our primary focus right now, we haven't really gotten into all that, but I agree. Anybody else?
For the record, your profession is?
Reportedly, I'm a plumber with 40 years of experience. I hate to say I've been doing that long. It shows how old I am. Yeah, these are all issues we need to deal with at some point. But again, because our focus has been on trying to get phase 1 in the ground and get through the various town meeting votes and the administrative things at the state and whatnot, that's kind of where our energy has been. But I agree with everything that Tom says. We need to watch all the other issues and conserve the water that we have. So, anybody else? Any committee members? Okay, we have past meeting minutes of January 24th.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of January 24th.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second,
Again, roll call. Lee,
aye.
Tom Roach. Is he muted? Can he hear us?
It's because Rita's lips.
Did you say aye?
I guess. John, Joanne,
Yes.
Spiro, myself, I. Okay, so future meeting dates and agenda items. Do we need to meet any more often going into town meeting, or do we think monthly is adequate?
Town meeting's April 26th.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there'll be 2 meetings before then. Yeah, as long as the April meetings before the 26th.
Yeah, that would be, 26th would be a Tuesday, so our normal time would be the 25th. So-
Well, if the selectmen are gonna send anything our way, it would be in time for an April meeting.
I don't think they're gonna send us anything we don't know about. Like I said, I think maybe what we'll do is we'll get the text of the town meeting articles that pertain to us, and then hope Bill was gonna try to be here from what I was told, but obviously he didn't make it, so I will definitely make sure that's on the agenda for next time that we get those squared away, so we all understand them as best we can. So I guess it would be
It's more than increasing frequency, as long as our date dovetails
with whatever they're doing.
right.
Okay, we'll just leave it flexible, and we'll worry about the 28th of March. Is that what you
Do
got?
you want to do March 28th?
Was that
Do
what
you
it
want
should
to
be?
try to tentatively schedule something in April too then? Or worry about that?
Yeah, if we could, I think if we could move that up to before the day of the meeting, would be better. So maybe. if we could do
Maybe
the
April
18th.
18th, yeah. So,
Oh,
I
wait
mean,
a minute.
March,
Is that the
It's a
holiday?
holiday.
It's a holiday.
Never
Again.
mind. Nice try.
I was bumping into the holidays.
There's always one around here.
Which holiday is that? National Plumbing
Patriots
Day?
Day. Yeah. Still such thing as National Plumbers Day.
all right,
Patriots Day
well,
is-
it's
All right, we'll
planned
leave it
for March 28th and then we'll figure it out
Yeah.
after that.
So potentially 328 and 425. But if something comes up that we need to get in on, we can move the meeting, at least the April. Or actually, we can one.
And hopefully we'll have a couple of web pages that we're going to publish and that we had talked to you guys about the topic specific web pages for the wastewater. I think we'll have a couple of them published by the next meeting and we can show you guys some.
Okay,
So between that and town meeting articles, we should have some stuff to talk about.
and actually, the designer decision should be made by then too, so we can deal with that after.
I just have one question. I wanted to just double back. I know I'm jumping back on the agenda.
That's all right.
On the 10th of March, that meeting, Dave, and will you be presenting all of that? How does that, that's all, or Jeff, are you part of that presentation? How does this
That's the
hearing,
notice project
this
change.
public, notice
Public-
probably
The
the
NEPA.
March
To
10th?
meet the meeting, we're gonna have to coordinate that with Jeff, whether we split the presentation or
Okay,
how we do
Yeah,
it.
but they've asked for a short 10 to 15-minute
Yeah.
presentation, just to give an overview of the project.
Okay.
You know, we focused on the executive summary type level. But, you know, Jeff's done a good job of pulling together a couple presentations that we've given him slides for at the last selectmen's
Yeah.
meeting. That'll probably be something.
oh,
similar to
okay,
that.
sure. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Sounds like it's more to give the public opportunity to chime
Yeah,
in.
right.
Okay,
And from your perspective, in terms of the actual submission, the document, where do you think we might be most at risk? You know, when Spiros has talked about the other two segments in town, Parkers River and Lewis Bay, the same level of attention has been paid as the Bass River. And it has been 11 years, 10 years since any real aggressive testing has been done in either of those.
Well, no,
Maybe Parkers River.
You're testing annually.
Okay,
You do that, and we had a proposal from SMAS last fall to update that, pull it all together. The town didn't have the funding at this point, but Jeff's just asked us to get an update for that, because there's potential for some funding that's been identified
yeah,
to do that.
sure.
They just did a similar exercise for Dennis, so the Bass River one is available.
Yeah. So Bass River is in much better shape in terms of current, more frequent testing than the other.
Well, the same amount of testing, it just
Yeah.
hadn't been updated versus how did the data compare to the MEP
Okay,
work or the data that
Yeah.
was in the Mass Estuaries Project report. Bass River, what it showed is there was a temporary improvement up from widening the Cape Cod Rail Trail, the old railroad bridge. The water quality north of Route 6 continues to degrade and is severely impacted. The only new concern was that some of the water quality in the southern portion of the Bass River had degraded. And there could be a whole host of reasons for that. Some of it could be because you're getting more flushing up near Route 6. You may be moving some of that nitrogen south. Could be more people were spending time in the higher density area in the southern portion of the river. Could be all the above.
And those areas
So
got
it's
less.
It's hard to know where we might be most at risk for some questions from NEPA.
I think
And
the
where they
issue with
might turn
MEPA,
around and say, go do some more.
I think the issue with MEPA is they've passed a lot of greenhouse gas emission regulations, sea level rise issues, so resiliency type items. I think that's more in the realm that's changed in the last 10 years that they want to make sure is being addressed. We did address those to a certain degree. So that's why we're hoping that that met their sort of threshold. And the bottom line is too, that even when you go into the design phase, you still have to submit these plans back for DEP review or for archaeological reviews, or there's still a coordination process with the MEPA folks. So it's not like they give an approval and they say, all right, go ahead and build it. There's still a lot of coordination and reviews that go on. So we're hoping that that approach picks up all those other newer regulations that have been passed during that time span.
Rick, you had something to add?
Friends of Bass River is adding a 7th testing station, Bass River, this coming year off of Brinkley Point in the lower Bass River area. So we'll have some data from that this year.
And that's in response to the rising nitrogen levels, the DO levels that were shown. But the good news about Friends of Bass River, which Rick didn't mention, is that the MEP update was great for us because it solidified the data that we found the last 2 years in the river. Our data models are the same as what the MEP came out with. And for a volunteer program, we were pretty excited that, our data actually is following sort of real data, if you will. It have real data, and it makes us feel good about that. And we also did a study last summer with Stonehill College, which we're going to replicate this summer using more advanced equipment, and that data mimics the data from our volunteer program. So
It's getting worse, just slowly and incrementally.
Yeah, I don't know how they really looked at the numbers. When I looked at the summary of the notice of project change, I was surprised. We knew Bass River was bad, but I didn't realize it was that bad.
yeah, it's bad.
So
Bad.
if
If
you look
you're
at all the
just
areas that
resident
require
homeowner,
100% nitrogen removal, the problem is, as much as your projects are going to be helpful, we all know it's not going to be enough. Because you're not going to get 100% just by flushing the river.
Yeah, I think one of the best things that came out of the Bass River portion of that study was, perception wise, a lot of people thought water quality had been improving in the Bass River up near the Route 6. They saw the widened bridge. They didn't see the whirlpool anymore. So they figure all this flushing's occurring and this and that. And this report totally disproved that. You saw a little bit up in the curve a little bit when it was first done in 2010, I believe, it was first widened. But now it's all gone back up again. So
I thought
the question of it's all improved, that's off the table now.
The other thing too is getting Dennis's attention on the dredging end of things, because they're responsible for the northern end of the river. And I'm working on a house right now, and every time I go there, I swear the sandbar in front of the house is getting bigger. So it might be in my imagination, but all those sandbars can't be helping the effort to get the water to move up and down the river. And I'm sure that even includes the one by the marina in Dennis, just north of the bridge. I know everybody likes that free beach, but the boaters beach there.
Well, as most people I think in this room know, the bottleneck is the Route 6 bridges.
Mhm.
Dennis and Yarra need to continue to work to try to get it on MassDOT's list at some point in time and offer, as you have in the past, to kick in money to widen those back to where they were, which is about double what they are today. Doesn't have to be year 2028, but it needs to be on the list at some point in time to do that. And that's when you're going to get your best benefit for the northern portions of Bass River.
Once I collapse, they'll have to do it.
Just
No,
go
we'll
on the
just-
inside lanes for now.
All right, they'll just run both sides on, both ways of traffic on one bridge, whatever's left.
Don't keep
Okay.
behind the Tractor trailer truck with 100,000 pounds.
Well, they actually did put a weight limit for a while and then it disappeared too. Okay, anybody else have anything? Got a motion?
Mr. Chairman, just one question. In future meetings, can we get an update on our schedule and also on the progress of the design?
Yep. That is a question I had. Are we gonna have construction documents on the collection system from what we're doing right now?
Sure, you will.
Oh, okay.
Actually, we have a coordination meeting with town staff on the collection system tomorrow. But we can talk about, future meeting dates, what to supply you folks and how that interaction.
Okay,
can go on.
all right, Lee, we got it covered. Anybody
Thank
have
you.
anything else? Okay, so do we have a motion to adjourn? Okay, second.
Second.
Okay, oh, Tom's there. It's the first I've heard of him. All right, we'll start on Zoom. Those in favor, aye. Tom?
Aye.
Aye.
John? Joanne?
Yes.
Spiro?
Yes.
Myself, aye.